Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this late afternoon session titled Industrial Design Cases. My name is Štorga. I'm head of the chair of Design and Product Development here at University of Zagreb and your host at this conference. We have 5 interesting presentations today in this session. First, we will see your presentations, and after that, we will proceed with the second part that will be discussion. I would like to invite you to mute yourself during this first part so we do not have a noise, background noise. And I will introduce each of you one by one before your presentation. So if you are ready, first we have our first presenter is Vanessa Bruno, who is product and industrial designer and PhD student in management, production and design at the Department of Architecture and Design at Politecnico di Torino. She's currently researching the enhancement of local production culture through design-driven process of industrial conversion and product diversification for companies in Piedmont, Italy, collaborating with Torino Chamber of Commerce. And Eva will present us the paper that she co-authored with Beatrice Lerma. Yes, let's see Eva's presentation.
Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. My name is Vanessa Bruno. I am an industrial designer and a PhD student at the Politecnico di Torino in Italy. I'm glad to present a focus of my PhD research. The title of the paper I'm going to talk about is The Contribution of Design Discipline in Business Decisions Through Design-Oriented Production Diversification, a case study in Italian furniture sector. The paper has been written with my professor Beatrice Lerma, who is a researcher in design at Politecnico di Torino. I'm going to talk about the aim of the paper, which is the definition of industrial designers' contribution in manufacturing companies through the production diversification strategy. The theoretical background about the strategy will be defined. Then I will show you a useful tool for designers to visualize the company portfolio called the product space tool. Next, I'll focus on one case study of design-driven product diversification in furniture sector in Italy. In order to focus on the topic, we define the following research questions for this initial study. What is the role of the discipline of industrial design in corporate business? How industrial designers help generating new concepts, exploiting the company's competencies? The discipline of industrial design could be an essential key to expanding the horizon of innovation in disruptive business strategies. From this perspective, the designers act like an explorer who searches for new meanings by creating unexplored project areas, production processes, and original products. A further step is to look at the design culture as an added value that can implement design-driven innovation, commonly represented as the innovation of meanings. Diversification is a business strategy adopted by firms to increase their revenues and spread the risk by updating the product portfolio. Ansoff, a Russian-American business manager, was the first to identify 4 main strategies for firms' growth in turbulent markets: increasing market penetration, market development, product development, and diversification, as illustrated in these metrics. In this research, diversification is intended as a business strategy where industrial designers can provide the most outstanding contribution, combining their skills in exploring innovative uses of production processes to create new products. The product space is the tool we have chosen to visualize the company product portfolio and explore possible production diversification. It was born as a data visualization medium of the Atlas of Economic Complexity, developed by Harvard University. Although the tool has been designed on a large scale, that on a country, we believe it can be very well adapted to a smaller scale, that of a company. The study described here is a portion of my doctoral research that uses the collection of case studies as a research method in order to gain fresh insights. My database catalogs 60 case studies of Italian firms from different production sectors that have applied design-oriented diversification. The criteria to select the firms are manufacturing companies that produce semi-finished products, components, and finished products with a medium architecture complexity, the propensity to high impact of innovation and exploration of new opportunities. In the following slides, I will try to investigate the diversification strategy of the Italian company Fiamma, here intended as a case study during the desk research. Fiamma was founded in 1973 by the entrepreneur Vittorio Livi in the Marche region in Italy. The company's core business is evident from the first product released on the market, Onda, a poof made of wired glass with smooth shapes. Fiamma was the first company to produce furnishing elements in bent glass. During the years, Fiamma added silvering to create mirrors from sheets of glass. Let's give a brief overview of its path of diversification. Over the years, Fiamma added to the product portfolio other chairs, coffee tables, desks. But success came in 1987 with Ghost, the first glass armchair designed by Boeri that became an icon of Made in Italy. The concept of a chair made entirely of glass can be defined as design-driven innovation, capable of developing new meanings and create new markets. 11 years later, Fiamma added one material, metals, and a production process, silvering, to produce a mirror. In 1998, Philip Stark designed Cadre, the first product in which bent glass is combined with a mirror. In 2021, the company added a set of TV mirrors to its product portfolio through a co-branding deal with LG. Let's have a look on the effects of diversification in the company. Thanks to the diversification process, the company introduced new materials, metals, and, for example, a television, a production process, silvering, to manufacture new products, different chairs and bent glass tables, bent glass mirrors, and mirrors with integrated television. In addition, by consulting the product space tool, the company gives its expertise and know-how, can further expand the product portfolio while remaining in the furniture sector. For example, it can add copper foil production, optical elements, safety glass, lamps, sliding doors, glassware for decorative use. What emerges is that designers can propose new products that fit into its strategy. One purpose is to find and explore the market niches, which could be a driving force for the company. The advantages of a diversification strategy are many. First, Fiamma spread the firm risk by producing similar and related goods to glass furniture, penetrating similar markets using existing resources, know-how, and expertise. Industrial designer can use the tool of economic complexity to drive the diversification strategy. I'd like you to think more about the significance of this figure. Industrial designers are vectors of innovative strategies oriented to the needs of the end user. My presentation is over. Thanks for watching.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Before actually we continue, I would like to invite all participants and presenters to freely ask the questions in the chat during the presentation. So, our second presentation today will be given by the Paul Anthony Rodgers, who is Professor of Design at the University of Strathclyde, Department of Design, Manufacturing and Engineering Management. He was Arts and Humanities Research Council Priority Area Leadership Fellow in Design between 2017 and 2021, where he was initiated a number of projects under Design Research for Change project that highlight the positive and wide-range social, cultural, environmental, and economic impacts design research plays in some of the most complex and challenging issues we face both in UK and abroad. Prior to joining University of Strathclyde, he actually was Professor of Design at Intergenerational Lancaster University, Professor of Design Issues at Northumbria University School of Design, Reader in Design at Edinburgh, Pierre University, and postdoctoral researcher fellow at the University of Cambridge Engineering Design Centre. His current research interests explore the disciplines of design and how disruptive design interventions can enact positive change in health and social care and elsewhere. Very impressive, Paul. So let's see Paul's presentation.
Good afternoon. I'd like to present my paper today entitled The Intergenerational Co-Design of Glasgow COP26 Souvenirs. My name's Paul Rodgers, and this paper has been authored by myself, Kieren, Egan, Alix, McDonald and Gemma, Gilliland, all from the University of Strathclyde in the United Kingdom. This co-design project, undertaken by pairs of students from the Centre for Lifelong Learning and the Design, Manufacturing and Engineering Management Department at the University of Strathclyde, asked for budding designers to take part in an 8-week project that will provide an opportunity to showcase their creative talents. The project asked all interested parties to design a souvenir to commemorate COP26 that was being held in Glasgow in November 2021. Intergenerational learning is where people of all ages can learn together and from each other. Beyond the transfer of knowledge, intergenerational learning fosters reciprocal learning relationships between different generations and helps to develop social capital and social cohesion in our ageing societies. A little bit about the context of the project. It took place during a period of national lockdown in Scotland. Students had been working from home for many months, and the lockdown was having a significant effect on people's health and well-being. Loneliness, boredom, frustration, and being isolated from friends, work colleagues and family were all taking a toll on people. We thought that running an intergenerational co-design project between design students and Centre for Lifelong Learning students would be a fun and interesting activity that would alleviate some of the participants' feelings of loneliness, boredom, frustration, and being isolated from others. So the brief for this project was simple: design and manufacture a limited run, 10 souvenirs that will commemorate COP26 being held in Glasgow in November 21. The aims of the Intergenerational Co-Design project were to integrate older adults into a university-based co-design project that would keep them active and involved in local issues, specifically the COP26 conference that was held in Glasgow. To increase social interaction opportunities amongst our design students, as the COVID-19 restrictions were leading to significant isolation and mental health issues amongst groups of students. We also wanted to explore how the co-design products created by the co-design pairs would be affected by integrating different perspectives and experiences of older adults. During the 8-week project, the co-design pairs worked through a number of important stages in the design and manufacture of their souvenirs. This included fundamental stages from the design brief to research, to concept design, to manufacture, and finally onto exhibiting and selling their souvenirs. The next few slides show some of the stages the co-design pairs worked through. Here we see a brainstorming session to generate concept ideas using mind mapping techniques. And here we see some freehand drawings to explore concept alternatives through externalizing design thoughts and ideas. Here we see an early CAD rendering exploring the detail of a COP26 souvenir. And here we see some very early mock-ups for a potential COP26 souvenir. The main results of the practice-based co-design project is the design and manufacture of 17 unique souvenirs that commemorate the city of Glasgow hosting COP26 in November 2021. Here we can see a selection of the 17 unique souvenirs, including solar-powered glass jar lanterns depicting famous Glasgow murals, drinks coasters made from waste timber, an automata based on Glasgow's coat of arms, a new umbrella repair service that takes old, broken and discarded umbrellas and gives them a new lease of life by fitting new, handmade, reclaimed wooden handles, and bespoke utility bags made from recycled plastic bags that have been thrown away. An exhibition of the Glasgow COP26 souvenirs was held to coincide with COP26 in the first week of November 2021, and an accompanying catalogue was produced for visitors to take away. A total of 13 older adult learners and 22 design students were involved in the Glasgow COP26 souvenir project. Over half of the respondents involved in the project were aged 55 and over. Here, we can also see that over half of the participants involved in the project had been educated to at least degree level, with over 1/4 having a postgraduate qualification in subjects such as English literature, nursing, law, architecture, and pharmacy. We used a content analysis approach to identify the major reasons and themes participants signed up for the project, and we can see that the most significant reasons were to connect and collaborate and to express themselves creatively. We can also see that design to the participants has a range of meanings, from something that is about creativity to something that relates to function, that is about solving problems, and is also about communication. Overall, the project has been very successful. In the main, the co-design pairs work well together, and most participants are looking forward to undertaking similar future projects. So to conclude, this project has highlighted the utility of intergenerational co-design projects that incorporate older adults in higher education. The co-design project helped increase social interaction amongst our design students and older adults. And the results suggest that the majority of the participants had an extremely positive experience and that there was a large variety of different skill sets, motivations, and interests that came together to produce the souvenirs. Developing such a project is not without its challenges, however. And despite delivering a number of design and development workshops, many of the participants involved in this project noted that their skill sets, at least initially, were lacking. And not all co-design pairs continued throughout the 8 weeks due to other work commitments. Some of the participants reported a range of challenges to taking part in the work, although none seemed insurmountable, and the experience may be related to the unpredictability of working within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic at the time. This work has successfully addressed some of the major issues surrounding healthy ageing in the UK, such as exploring the capacity of older learners to apply new and existing knowledge and skills to showcase their creative potential at a large-scale event. Finally, this work aligns with the University of Strathclyde's age-friendly academy's ethos of offering something for everyone, regardless of age or stage in life, alongside wider global health concepts around developing and maintaining functional abilities into the later years of life. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a nice day.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very nice presentation. So our next presenter is Jonathan Max Kiessling, who is a research assistant at the University of Stuttgart, Institute for Engineering Design and Industrial Design in the team Interface Design, and with research focused to adaptive morphing interfaces. And he's having that position since 2020. Between 2017 and 2020, he actually graduated as a Master of Science Mechanical Engineering in Product Development and Design Engineering of University of Stuttgart. And he will present us our paper on that he co-authored with Karl, Hilbig, Johanna, Dinkel, Markus, Schmid, Thomas Maier, and Thomas Vietor. So let's hear and see Jonathan's presentation.
Welcome to the presentation of the exploratory analysis of adaptively morphing handle forms for load transfer use cases. My name is Jonathan Kiessling from University of Stuttgart, and this work is presented by me and my colleague Karl Hilbig from Technische Universität Braunschweig. First of all, here's an overview over the content of this presentation. I will declare the goal for this work. We will look at the background of ergonomic handle design approaches and our adaptively morphing handle design. Then I will present the methods for use case identification and the test stand design in this work. And I will present the first findings, implications for usability, and the use case dependent handle forms. Then we will discuss in an outlook the adaptively morphing handle design guidelines and the limitations of this work. First, the two goals of this work. We wanted to design a test stand and a method to first isolate and manual load transfer use cases for handles, and secondly, analyze and compare adaptive and non-adaptive handle forms. The ergonomic handle design approach depends mainly on two factors, the users and the use cases. Users bring their diverse hands with different measurements and different proportions. The use case leads to different directions of transferred forces and momentums via the handle. So we can approach the users either by measuring the hands by their contours, which is fairly standard, or a little more complicated with modeling the kinematics of the hand. Even more complicated is measuring the skin surface in a 3D model and then deriving the factors for handle design. The handle design, it is common to use a standardized handle that is optimized for some users and some specific use cases. Or we can go a step further and personalize a handle for specific use cases for one single user. Our approach is to design an adaptive handle that adapts to the users and the use cases and changes its form. These approaches lead to a wide variety of different handles and products. Our adaptively morphing handle design consists of these four main components. First, we have a flexible shell around the whole handle. Inside the shell, there's a granulate that can be deformed by hand, so the structure is morphing. Then we have a fixed mechanical structure to transfer loads through the handle, and we have a pneumatics interface to control the stiffness of the handle. This leads to a deformation range of about 12 millimeters. As a use context, we chose a rollator or a walker to fit the adaptive handle to. In this work, we look at the common definition of usability as the extent to which a product enables a specific user to reach a specific goal effectively, efficiently, and satisfactorily within a specific use context, while focusing on the efficient part of this definition. So first we identified use cases with the rollator step by step, and then derived the use cases in this work on a handle level. So we looked at which use case leads to which load transfers when just focusing on the handle of the product. The problem with this is that it's very hard to isolate individual use cases on the handle alone when using it in the context. So we needed a test stand where we could isolate those use cases. For each use case, one or more loads are the dominant main loads, while the other loads are relatively low. This is used to describe all the different use cases we identified on the rollator on a force and torque measurement level. In addition to measuring the transferred main loads with the 6-axis sensor, we used a TechScan grip research pressure sensor equipped glove to measure the pressure distribution on the subject's hands. When looking at one specific use case, we can compare the main loads over time on a fixed reference level, so it's equal for all different experiments with different handles. This leads us to a comparison of different pressure distributions on an equal reference level for the transferred load, which we can use to examine the usability in the efficiency domain for each individual handle. Here we can see that the pressure distribution seems to be quite good for the adaptive handle that adapts perfectly to the user's hand. As a next step, we 3D scanned the specific forms for each use case and each load transfer inside the test stand. This way we can capture a user and use case specific form of the handle and find first indications for ideal forms for each use case. As for the limitations of this work, it is definitely the sample size, as we were still in an exploratory phase. We are planning to do a much larger sample study using this test stand. Also, there's a slight sensor interferation since the pressure sensor is in the interface between handle and subject's hands. The proposed method can be used for examining use case specific handle forms for multiple users and is one part of a holistic handle usability evaluation as seen below. So for further work, we can also focus on gathering users' anthropometric data and designing further functionality for our adaptively morphing handle or more interfaces. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to talking to you about this topic.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for the nice presentation. Okay, our next speaker is Paolo Puparo, who graduated from the master's degree in design at the University of Florence and who is currently a PhD student in sustainability and innovation for the built environment and product systems design. During his research interest concerning the development of methodologies applied to creative processes, he is currently engaged in the research project titled Design, Art and Business, Innovation Strategy and Sustainable Channels for the Creation of Value, which focuses on the analysis and collection of information relating to mapping of relationship between design, contemporary art and companies, starting from the Tuscan territory. And Paolo will present a paper that he co-authored with Margherita Tuffarelli and Maria Claudia Coppola. So let's see Paolo's presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paolo Pupparo, and I am a PhD student of the University of Florence in the Design Department. Today, I present this paper, Experimenting in Industrial Product Design, the case Art, Design and Business Project for the New Young Talents, Young Culture as a Motor for a New Business Economy in Tuscany. So, let's start. We are faced with a dichotomy in which there is, on the one hand, a reactionary aversion to the new techniques of industrial production, and, on the other hand, a sterile adoption of the new techniques of mass production that we can now consider traditional. This ambiguity becomes ever more evident when we talk about industrial products, and we realize that we are moving further and further away from the concept of form as a synthesis of a design thought, aimed at the aesthetic emotional component, as well as the functional one. So, defining industrial design today means moving from traditional techniques and practice to more advanced modes of both design and production, in which digital transformation becomes a design tool and at the same time describe new opportunities for industries. Here, then, is the very attitude of industrial design, together with the attention of the use of materials in innovation process, to preserve the absolute and abstract value of the idea as a project of the work, but especially that the semantic ambiguity of the term design as a reflection of the encounter between industrial culture and design culture. Therefore, it becomes critical to describe experiences where practical experimentation rights by industrial design research is beneficial for industry-related projects. Through this experimentation, appropriate artifacts that developed to generate a new body of knowledge. The complexity of the industrial production system is not only to be found in an intrinsic way in the internal phases of a production chain, but also in the external ones, which are strongly influenced by the transversal perception of the people have in relation to the production itself. It is evident that an industrial production addressed to the masses, and therefore addressed to individuals, is actually complex and imbued with factors of social, cultural, and biological influence. So, here is that the genesis of any product or series of products does not become a mere formal solution, but a deeper generative synthesis that collaborates in an active way with many interlocutors, so as to define precise assumptions of responsibility by the designers towards society and people who will then use this design solution within the real world and especially within economic and cultural relationships in continuous transformation. We are getting closer and closer to the definition expressed by Thomas Maldonado of the International Council of Society of Industrial Design. Industrial design is a creative action whose objective is to determine the formal value of objects produced by industry. These formal qualities include the external characteristics of products, but above all those structural and functional relationships that transform the product as a system into a coherent whole form, the point of view of the manufacturer and the buyer. Industrial design make it necessary to cover all aspects of the human environment, conditioned and directed to the industrial production. Moreover, considering the new idea of open manufacturing and therefore enabled and enabling with respect to the digital design and production technologies, we are faced with a new idea of production, in which there is a huge amount of individual products that are perfectly adapted to people. The definition of these new paradigms of mass individualization could suggest more and more a structured and mutual design with respect to additive manufacturing techniques, but with an even more preponderant emotional and characterizing component proper to the design culture. So, the research with polyart began with a design phase for a surface with a certain aesthetic and functional characteristics, bringing together the artistic and industrial dimension. Always the way on the dialectic between unique piece and reproducibility, based on the conception of the error of the machine as its signature. The new stage involved the design and prototyping of the packaging and all the digital apparatus it contains, an integral and significant part as it was synchronic and necessary for the project to function, be made available to the public and sold. The innovative approach to the highlighted in this project is the direct communication between designers, machines, and the users, in a collection of objects that combine aesthetics research with the more industrial aspect linked to the serial development. Development methods and techniques that the company already possesses have been used, enhancing the possibility of realization by broadening to the formal range of the offering new perspective by exploring the technical limits as added value. The project called Place. It presents as a series of fictional and non-fictional visions in continuous growth and transformation that emerge from an instinctive dimension. The series of works that are articulated through heterogeneous support intends to address through the subject of place, synthesized and concentrated in a modular gesture that is repeated. The eternal dialectic that is structured in us between being and appearing. At times, the painted place enters into a relationship and almost is simulated with the real one, stretched and grafted onto surfaces and more. So, the same industrial production that today can choose to change design, production, but also business process in relation with the new union between quality design, with a strong emotional and exponential component, and the use of the advanced production technologies. We can deal with the great uncertainty about the future dictated by an accelerating technological advancement through lively experimentation, in which direct experience of new product can produce the knowledge needed to bring out content and meaning. This experimentation proposed in this case indicates a new vision of digital technologies, no longer understood only as the custodians of quality of information, but also a valid integrated tool in close relationship with the design culture. In exploring this new horizon, we can identify different practices ranging from industrial design to advanced design. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paolo, also for a very interesting presentation. And our final presentation today is the presentation by Tomassin Camilleri, who is currently researching for Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering at the University of Malta. This paper reflects the master studies which generate insights on the trade-offs between sustainability and aesthetics in over-the-counter pharmaceutical packaging. Framework was also developed to support the stakeholder-focused design of sustainable and aesthetic pleasing over-the-counter pharmaceutical packaging. Her studies in packaging began with her undergrad degree, Bachelor in Mechanical Engineering, which aimed to design sustainable packaging for small therapeutic toy for children. Along with her master's studies, she is now working as a process engineer developing microchips for cars and mobile devices. Very interesting CV as well. So let's see Tomassin's presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is Tomassin Camilleri, and on behalf of the co-authors, I am glad to present our research on a framework to design for aesthetics and sustainability in over-the-counter pharmaceutical packaging, or OTCP packaging. The first section of this presentation is information on the background and motivation for the study. Then I will be moving on to a study conducted with OTCP packaging development stakeholders. Next, I will present the generated Assist OTCPP framework, and finally go over its evaluation. The design of OTCP packaging is complex in nature because the designer must strike a balance between the functional requirements. However, when incorporating sustainability, this adds additional constraints to, for example, the types of materials which can be used. Therefore, it is essential that the designer must strike a balance between the sustainability and functional requirements, while also ensuring that the stakeholder needs are met. Here are the following works related to aesthetic attributes in OTCP packaging. These are just a few of the studies conducted. In view of this context, the research objective is to develop a framework which guides designers to consider stakeholder needs into the design of OTCP packaging, while considering the aesthetics and sustainability. A study with OTCP packaging development stakeholders was carried out in order to understand the necessary framework requirements. Semi-structured interviews with 8 participants were held, and this resulted in understanding that the related standards must be considered, that existing packaging of OTCP packaging must be considered for aesthetic and sustainability analysis, that consumer demographics must be considered, and finally be applied in the task clarification stage. These framework requirements were used to critically review 24 design support systems, and it showed that none were adequate to design for aesthetics and sustainability in OTCP packaging. Therefore, the following framework was generated. At its core are the stakeholders, which are the designer, the pharmacist, and the consumer. The designer who will be using the framework would need to input the related OTCP tablet specifications and the target consumer demographics. If this framework is used for optimization, then the current OTCP packaging specifications would need to be used as well. Here is the graphical user interface for the computer-based tool which implements this framework. If the designer would need to input the target consumer demographics, they would click on this image and they'll be able to input the necessary information. Throughout the first section of the second stage of the framework, the designer would need to carry out an environmental and cost analysis of different OTCP packaging solutions to understand their impacts. Next, the designer would need to go through an aesthetic comparison between different OTCP packaging, and this depends on the target consumer demographics and the market. Finally, the designer would go through a list of standards which relate to OTCP packaging, and these give indications for aesthetically pleasing and sustainable OTCP packaging. Here is the graphical user interface for the environmental and cost analysis. Here is the one for aesthetic attributes analysis. And finally, this is the graphical user interface which presents the standards throughout the packaging lifecycle. In the third stage, the designer would need to rank engineering characteristics with respect to stakeholder requirements through a quality function deployment tool, and this is typically used throughout the task clarification stage. Here is the graphical user interface for this tool, and where the designer would need to rank engineering characteristics with respect to stakeholder requirements. The knowledge behind this framework is represented by 4 main categories. First are ones which relate to the environmental databases. Next, which relate to various OTCP packaging on the market. Next is a standards database. And also, consumer and pharmacist surveys were carried out with consumers and pharmacists to understand their necessary requirements. And over time, this knowledge is managed and maintained through a knowledge management layer. The Assist OTCP framework was then evaluated with another 8 OTCP packaging development stakeholders, and the following strengths and weaknesses were identified. The strengths contribute to the uniqueness and innovation of such a framework, and the limitations can be seen as future works for improvement. The study has generated insight on any trade-offs between aesthetics and sustainability, and however, its main contribution is the first steps towards understanding how sustainability and aesthetic attributes can be incorporated into the design of OTCP packaging, while also considering the main stakeholders throughout the design process, which are the designer, the pharmacist, and finally the consumer. Thank you for your attention, and I am glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, I would like to thank to all presenters. We have seen 5 really interesting presentations, and we got some questions in the chat. So I guess we may start with the discussion. We have about a little bit more than half hour, so enough time, I guess, to actually answer to all of them and also to ask additional questions if you will have it. Since we are only 10, I would rely on you, also participants, to contribute to discussion and ask questions to each other. So let's start with the first 2 questions that are actually asked by Stanko and then Jonathan follow-up. It was for Eva. And the question was about the product space tool that you show us. The question from Stanko was, how did you adopt the product space tool? And do you have some suggestions on how this can be done by other companies?
Okay, thank you both for your questions. Let's say that the power of this tool lies in defining new paths of diversification for countries' economy based on its know-how. So countries diversify by moving towards related products or those requiring similar know-how. So the product space is a kind of visualization of this distance between all the products. And so from one product, the analysis can estimate how easy it is to obtain the necessary know-how to make and to manufacture another product. Therefore, by analyzing the competencies and the assets of a company, of a firm, I think that it is possible to suggest these diversification paths. And to answer also in the second question, the tool is free, and I think that is a very useful tool to suggest fresh insights, and it is useful to open the dialogue between industrial designer and manager of the industry.
Okay, thank you.
You're
We will
welcome.
get back to the issue of the business development and industrial design interaction later. I would just like that we go through the questions that we get, and then we may actually discuss it a little bit further, because I found some connections between some of your papers, so I would like to hear what you think. After that, we had a question for Paul, but Paul was, I think, already answering in the chat. It was done by Jonathan, and he was asking about top 3 incentives for motivating older users participate in design process. Would you like to comment more, Paul, on that for those who didn't read it?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I mean, in terms of incentivizing them, we didn't really need to incentivize too much. I think, as I said in the talk, it was during a period of lockdown when I think people were looking for anything to do. So I think when we launched the project, that there was a very positive response from people. They were really keen to get involved. I think the most thing is, I mean, do something interesting, something that interests people, and I think a souvenir project is always something that, you know, many of us know what a souvenir is. We collect souvenirs, and I think the opportunity to design and manufacture souvenirs that were to commemorate COP26 was a really exciting opportunity for not just for the older adults, but also the design students.
Okay. And then this was followed up by Stanko. Stanko, by the way, thank you for being active and asking the questions. So Stanko was curious, were students given specific instructions before the co-design project? So was it kind of preset, or was just freely, you let them to behave freely in these co-design sessions? Paul, could you hear me?
Oh, sorry, was that for me?
Oh, yes. There was the follow-up question from Stanko, asking were students given any specific instructions before co-design project?
Not really. I mean, it was a fairly conventional brief. So we at the outset we gave them a brief which was really to design and manufacture 10 souvenirs. So this is a project that I've ran at several places with several universities and several different types of students. So it's always a project that works really well. We also gave them some specific information. We showed them some ideas, some projects from the past, some relevant projects, and also as we worked through the project, some of the restrictions were lessened, and some of the participants could come into the workshop and use some of the machinery and materials and techniques. And I think the older adults and the design students really enjoyed the manufacturing part.
Okay, good. And Stanko was asking for maybe some suggestions for other institutions that would like to introduce the intergenerational learning, some lessons learned. I think is a very good question, because it may be applied also in other places, in different contexts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there were some issues where, I guess, when you try to engineer teams together, sometimes it doesn't work for a whole variety of reasons. I think there was also issues of, because it was during COVID, you know, I think other things arose where people were sensitive to maybe mixing with people. Some people were getting ill, so it was kind of further complicated by the kind of COVID, the ongoing pandemic. I think there was if to look more positively, there was some really amazing kind of relationships that grew between the people, and I think the design students learned just as much as the older adults, and I think some of those relationships have kind of continued, and so I think there was a lot more kind of positive things than any kind of lessons, really.
Okay, good. I have just one short follow-up, sorry. It's very interesting topic of intergenerational learning. I don't know how deep was the analysis that you performed after it, but was it maybe possible to spot what was the contribution by different generation in the project, or that was not so obvious, or you didn't go into that details, just to understand what was the contribution in the teams by student and what by the elder?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, this was a project that I did in my spare time, so it was
okay.
as well as being a professor at Strathclyde and trying to do other things, I kind of did this in my spare time, and it was towards the end it got pretty stressful, because I was kind of running out of time. But I think
just your feeling. I'm not asking for scientifically rigor results or anything. Maybe just your feeling from the experience, you know.
So I think there's a real desire to continue work like this. So between our department of design and like the health and social care school, and people working in other kind of disciplines aligned to kind of health and social care, there's a real, there's a lot of excitement and huge motivations for working in the space. So where we can maybe do kind of creative projects like this that then help people, I think the big bonus for a lot of people was that it kind of helped their mental health a lot. Coming in and meeting with other people and being stimulated and challenged to do things. And I think also when people are being creative, they're happy. And I think a lot of those things are really positive for people. So there's that. I think there's many people in the university that want it to be scaled up and to do even more. But like many things, it's always finding time and resources and energy to do these things.
Okay, good. Thank you. Let's move forward. Jonathan, actually, Stanko asked you, to what extent did you take into account some of inclusive design recommendations? Have you implemented some universal design concepts when discussing the morphing handle forms, etc. in your research?
Yep. Thank you very much for the question. I just sent a link in the chat that shows the commonly known 7 universal design principles, and we mainly focused on principle 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. So since the handle is not in a fixed shape as it normally is, it's flexible, it's simple to use, it has a high error tolerance, low effort, and can appropriate its size to different users. So you can check that out. Since, for example, if you have a handle that has a specific form and someone grabs it wrong, then it can hurt the hand. But since our handle adapts to how it's gripped, you don't have that problem anymore. I also have it in writing here. I'll just copy that in the chat as well. So if you want to read it again.
That's good. Thank you. Okay. And then there was a follow-up question where Stanko asked, have you discussed your findings with industrial designers related to suggested forms and shapes at the end?
Yep. Yes, we did that as well. Though I have to admit, we did not discuss it with industrial designers that work in the same use context that we chose. So it was not industrial designers for rollator grips, but industrial designers for bicycle grips and second for surgical manipulators. So in a different use context.
Okay, good. And then Eva had a follow-up question. I guess for you, in addition to Stanko's question, can this analysis help design for all true customized products?
Yes, I hope so.
Eva, you can unmute yourself and clarify the question if you want, because...
Yeah, I mean, for design for all, I mean, with people with special needs, difficulties in moving hands, for example.
Yeah, that's one of our main goals that we work towards. So yeah, I hope it will, and I hope we can show it scientifically that it really does help people with either extreme hand dimensions or with impacted mobility of their fingers, for example, arthritis. People that have arthritis and are limited in their movements, once the grip can adapt to that limited movement, it should help the user experience overall. And that's one of the goals we try to show in our work. So thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Super interesting.
Yeah. Jonathan, do you think that soft robotics in general, and we have seen in keynote presentation another day, will open new possibility for industrial design domain? I see it as a potential very interesting field. And how could you comment on it in general, or you thinking about where it will go and what will require from industrial designers, actually, maybe some new skills and
so the skills it requires. So from my experience, it required a lot of like it's kind of a cliche, but like think a little bit out of the box, like not just approaching it with a mechanical engineering mindset that you have to have a fixed form that's structurally suitable for the loads, but you have to apply different materials that you would not have thought about earlier. And for your first question, I definitely think that it opens up a lot of opportunities, like first for final products in general. So if you apply the soft robotics to, for example, a tool for like an electric drill that's fixed for now, you could apply the soft robotics principles to make it a little more flexible in the use. But you could also apply the soft robotics in the development of those products, which helps us as industrial designers to more quickly develop better solutions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think it's very promising.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we lost
Thank
Paolo, isn't it? I don't see him anymore with us. So it was the question from Stanko who asked about to describe the co-design process throughout the project that Paolo showed us, and to what extent was familiarity with technical aspects related to manufacturing and mass customization relevant for all participants. And he answered that the design process involved short initial co-design session and then specializing in each designer vertical design. And mass customization was through industrial design aided by artificial intelligence. Actually, I wanted to ask Paolo, but we have seen also some other, I think, relation to the business and business development and industrial design. Is it economy based on art and design purely something that actually is specific for particular regions or can work anywhere? Is it more like related to the branding? Like I guess in Tuscany it's easy to brand this type of the economy. What do you think? Would it be possible anywhere? Maybe Eva can also jump in here, or others, since we do not have a Paolo. Maybe we can comment on that. In general, business development and industrial design interactions and perspectives. Do you have any? Any one of you would like to comment?
Yeah, so Paolo is not here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as a general thought, on an economy based on art and design, is it something that can be applied anywhere, or it's really should be related to some branding, like Tuscany, for example? I guess it's easy to brand it there and say that the economy may be based on it. I see Paul may want to add something.
If I may answer,
Yep.
Let's say that for what concerns Italy, Made in Italy is well known worldwide, so maybe it's quite easy to merge arts and crafts and design, also with industrial design. And I have no idea about other countries because I haven't studied about other countries. But let's say that in Italy, I can say that also in Piedmont region, that is my region, also craft can merge with the industry, and so with industrial design very well.
Anyone else would like to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think many years ago there was a drive towards global design where many scholars and practitioners tried to achieve global design or to define global design. I'm not sure how successful they were. I mean, I think what's interesting is that I think from the UK, I think we can see certainly in this country that there is a there is an increase in the amount of kind of localized design work that goes on. So, you know, there is a greater kind of acknowledgement and understanding of specific local crafts, and maybe supporting those crafts, you know, to make them more sustainable, more kind of resilient. But at the same time, you know, you still have many Scottish people that would prefer to drive a Ferrari than a Ford, and I would imagine there are many Torinese who would prefer to drive a BMW than a Lamborghini. So I think there's it's very difficult. I think there's so many permutations and variables when you start talking about craft and branding and global and local that it's a big, nice, rich mess, which is kind of why it's so interesting.
Good, thank you. Okay, then let's go to Tamasin. Stanko had a question for her, so, and more as a comment. So he said he thinks that your approach and tool could be beneficial for many applications. And what do you think, how hard would be to tailor it for a purpose outside of the OTCP packaging? How would you approach that problem to make it more generic? Would you start from scratch or modification? And I would add, do we truly need generic OTCP tool or not?
At the moment now, it considers the solid dose tablets. So, for example, especially in the sustainability analysis, it uses the dimensions and the mass of the solid dose tablet, and it makes the calculations based on that. However, this can be easily modified to cater for example, capsule pharmaceutical products. So if we keep to the pharmaceutical packaging, this can be very easily modified. If we're moving on to other industries, so for example, food packaging, then the knowledge in the knowledge base can also be modified very easily. However, the sustainability analysis would need some modification with regards to the calculation of the mass of the packaging. So in that sense, the aesthetic analysis and the list of standards, that can be very easily modified. The sustainability analysis would need a bit more kind of like calculations for that.
Okay.
And whether there's a need for such a generic tool with regards to OTCP packaging, from the interviews with the OTCP packaging development stakeholders, I got the idea that sustainability considerations are not really made in the design of OTCP packaging. So therefore, a generic tool would be needed for companies if they would like to adopt sustainability practices. I feel like to have such the first steps towards considering sustainability, this tool would be very, very beneficial for that.
Okay, that's interesting. I have a feeling that we quite often within the industries or sectors or company, we see specific tweaks rather than approaches that are usually generalized in academic papers, and that is the problem. Maybe Eva can also comment to it. How you show us one of these tools, how to map them more efficiently, actually, and validate and exchange this specific knowledge that company has in applying some specific tools. Is it something that would be of interest in the domain of industrial design? Because in engineering design research, we really try to kind of, make very generic or generalize the tools and methods in academic papers and then try to adopt it in the industry, and it's not always very successful. And then usually they do not live long there unless maybe they came, from the different directions. If they came from the industry and then became generalized. How it is in industrial design? Do you think that the tool that you show us, Eva, for example, could be used as a,
I think from what I understood from the semi-structured interviews, the main constraints when applying it to industry are in manufacturing. So that, of course, it would very greatly depend on the manufacturer that will produce the packaging. So in that case, then they would need to incorporate those constraints alongside the tool. So for example, if they were to go with specifically bottle packaging, then the tool does give some kind of indications on how to design the most not the most sustainable, but how to incorporate sustainability into bottle packaging. So in that case, I guess with the additional constraints on manufacturing, this tool still has a place on giving the sustainability or aesthetic considerations.
Okay. Would anyone like to add something to this discussion on the tools, generic tools and generalized tools that we see in academic papers?
Yeah, let's say that in my case, my research, I think that the tool that I show you can give insights, suggestions, but is not a strict rule. So yeah, let's say that it can give suggestions, but it's not a recipe.
Okay. Good. So we have a couple more minutes. Is there any additional questions that you would like to ask each other? I think we had a nice discussion and touched different aspects of it. So something to add or something to ask?
Yeah, I think I can talk faster than type.
Okay, that's great.
I'm trying to type.
And that is preferable way to actually communicate it in discussions. So please go.
I mean, yeah, Stanko's saying it's maybe not as easy to find older adults in Croatia.
Willing to participate, I guess.
Yeah.
You have.
So, I mean, in our university and in many universities in the UK, they have a department or an institute for older adults where people are encouraged to come in and take part in university life. So maybe Stanko can set the first one up in Croatia. That would be a challenge because and maybe it could be for UK people who travel to Croatia.
Yeah.
While they're there, they could take part in some
experience,
interesting design stuff.
I think we could team up and set one up in Germany as well. It's sometimes very old people live more isolated, and we are isolated in our work, especially in the last few years. That would be a good thing to have that at the university directly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of working on another proposal for a bigger scheme of work, where we're looking to do more co-design, co-production for Glasgow, because Glasgow is one of the most has probably the highest kind of health disparities in the Western world. Mm-hmm. So depending on where you stay within the city, you can live 10 years longer than someone who lives maybe 10 kilometers away. So the health, there is huge health inequalities within the city, and there's much work that really has to go on in the city to try and address those inequalities in health and well-being.
Okay, that's interesting.
I can. Last thing for me to say is, so Stanko's saying, yeah, he'll try. You can always get in touch, Stanko, and I'll help you. I'm happy to come to Croatia and help you.
That's great. Okay, with that, I guess we can close this session. Do not forget we have a closing session. Oh, Maria just posted in a chat in a couple of minutes at the stage, so it will be some final remarks given by me. So it's nothing important, but if you can stay with us and join us later for the social gathering, that would be nice actually too. Thank you for the session. Thank you for the presentations, and see you around. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Bye.
Bye. Nice to see you all.
Yeah.